Welcome in, everyone. You're listening to Bulls Central. We're currently in the dead of the NBA offseason right now, but just because a lot has not been really going on the Bulls front doesn't stop us from bringing in one of the best in the business, three-time NBA champion with the Bulls, first team All-American, Big Eight Player of the Year, and now, of course, you know him as the Bulls color commentator and host of the Give Me the Hot Sauce podcast. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the one and only Stacey King. Stacey, great to see you again, my man. Appreciate you making the time.
Oh, always got time for you, Jamal.
Now, I'm sure most of you are already, but give Stacy a follow at Stacy21King. Be sure to check out the Give Me the Hot Sauce podcast and all the great guests that he has on the show. He's actually going to have one right after this, so I'm sure it's going to be airing relatively soon. I'll leave a link to all that in the description, and actually try out Stacy's Give Me the Hot Sauce, the actual hot sauce.
Yeah,
It's
you got to
great
try out
stuff.
the hot
Goes
sauce.
on pretty much
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. It's not just a phrase, America. It's a legit
Right.
hot sauce business. It's some of the best hot sauce you'll ever taste. I guarantee it. I put my name on it. You'll love it.
It goes on pretty much anything. I'm actually curious. I feel like I should know this, but I don't. The "Give me the hot sauce" term, how did that come about? When was it first used, and how did it take off?
Well, it was over the Martin Luther King game against Memphis Grizzlies, and Kyle Korver, who was on our team at that time, was our best 3-point
Yeah.
shooter. And it just, everything's instinctive with me. I don't sit at home and make these phrases or these nicknames up.
Right.
It just, it's just instinctive. It's like a moment. Something happens in that particular moment, and that's when a phrase is created. It could be any time, any place, anywhere. It's just I never know when it's going to happen. I think if you did an X-ray of my brain, you'd see there's a party going on up there, like 1,000 things going on in a minute. And so, Kyle Korver got hot in Memphis, and I was just like, the phrase I said, "Give me the hot sauce, Kyle." And at that particular time, Jamal, I was giving guys nicknames, and so people
Yeah,
thought
yeah,
that was Kyle's nickname was hot sauce, and it really wasn't. It was just a phrase that I used for making 3-point shots, and he was the one at that particular time that was one of the best 3-point shooters in the game at that time. He was on
yeah,
our team, so that's how
yeah.
kind of how that phrase was born.
Yeah, he was coming off, that season in Utah, right, where he, like, shot the best percentage in NBA history, although I mean, it was a little low volume, but still impressive nonetheless. Interesting that it's Korver. I would have thought it was Rose or something like that from back in the
Nah, it
day,
was
but
it was Kyle Korver. It was just he got hot in that Memphis game, but he probably knocked down 2 or 3 a game. And
yeah,
he got hot in that Memphis game. I was just like, "Give me the hot sauce, Kyle." And then I would say, "I like hot sauce with my eggs," and it just kind of took legs on its own. And kind of like I don't like to consider myself like Harry Carey or Hawk Harrelson, but those kind of guys have catchphrases that they've used in the baseball terminology. And
sure,
you got holy cow, with Harry Carey, and those guys have some iconic sayings. And
yeah.
now some of my stuff is up there with some of those guys, and it's pretty cool listening every time I'm in the grocery store. Somebody says, "Give me the hot sauce," or sriracha, or any some of the things that I say. It's
And
pretty
now
cool.
the brand is in the grocery store,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be in Mariano's. We were in Jewel for a whole year, and then we
Yeah,
worked out a deal with Mariano's to get our hot sauce in there, and we're looking forward to that. It'll be in there at the start of the season.
good for you, man. Now, Stacey, the last time I had you on was last offseason. This was after the Bulls had signed Javon Carter, Torrey Craig, made the trade to get into the draft to get Julian Phillips. But outside of that, they were more or less running the team back. Team obviously looks a lot different now. And so I guess I'll kind of start there and maybe some of the offseason changes the Bulls have made. Some that might have been a bit more expected than others, but I'm curious, for you, what's been the biggest surprise of what we've seen so far this offseason from the team?
Well, I mean, really, there's nothing surprising me. I think, Jamal, that the Bulls had to go in this direction. This
Yeah,
running it back thing, they've done it the last couple of years. I think it's ran its course, with DeMar. As great as DeMar was here for the Bulls, and I mean, the ultimate pro, Caruso. These guys really came out and they played hard every single night. They're fan favorites. I hate to see those guys go. But with that said, with Lonzo being out, that really set this team back.
yeah,
I don't think anybody thought it was going to be that bad of a situation. That I think in the beginning, I think people thought, well, they'll be able to weather the storm. They'll be still a very good team. But losing Lonzo really, that was kind of like the Titanic being, hit iceberg.
yeah,
Because he meant so much to this team. The guy controls the tempo. He's one of the better 3-point shooters on our team. Shot over 40%. He was the second leading rebounder, but by the time he went out, he led the team in block shots and assists. And him and Caruso on the floor defensively could disrupt the entire NBA roster. I mean, those two
Yeah,
guys could guard anybody on the floor, and it made our defense be one of the best defenses in the NBA. And that's one of the reasons why we were like the number one team before he went out. I mean, we were cruising along, and possibly going to get the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. And when he went out, and then
yeah.
just kind of the last couple of years have been very difficult. Not trying to, I mean, having a hard time trying to replace that. You got the Zach Lavine injury last year that hurt the Bulls. Only playing in less than 30 games, that hurt. Um, then you got, DeMar, having to shoulder a lot of the scoring responsibility. Vooch not having a year that we thought he would have. So there was a lot of things that happened. But I think at the end of the day, you saw the maturation of Io, the maturation of Coby White. They've ascended. They played extremely well last year, and that was a bright spot of the season.
What were your thoughts on the Josh Giddey trade?
I like that trade. I mean, I listen. I hate to listen to get something. You have to give up something, and
Yeah,
everybody wants Caruso. Everybody wanted Caruso, and I would like to see the Bulls have gotten more for Caruso because from what I hear, hearsay, you hear all this stuff that they could have got 2 first-round picks for him, earlier or whatever. I don't know because I'm not in the office. I don't know what AK and Mark and those guys are doing behind the scenes. I just read what everybody else reads, from Woj or Shams or ESPN. We knew that Alex he was the biggest trade piece that we had as far as, trying to get something back in return. And I think if you look what the Bulls have done, and I've talked about this a lot on my show, is that, a lot of people are mad at the Bulls because, they want
yeah.
rebuild, but they want rebuild their way. And it doesn't work that
Right,
way.
right.
Fans want it to be quick and easy and painless. And unfortunately, when you're building through the draft, Jamal, it can take you 10 years, because you could have
Right.
some hits or misses. You can have some guys that pan out. You can have some guys that don't pan out. And then that puts you back. If those guys don't pan out and you draft high, you draft a number 4, number 5, number 6 pick, and those guys don't pan out, that puts you down another 3 or 4 years. So the way AK has done it is exactly how I've talked about doing this for years. If I was a
Yeah,
general manager, I would rebuild. I would go off of all the teams and see which young talent that I liked, and I would be monitoring those guys. I want to see what they're doing,
sure.
how they're playing when they get opportunities to play. And I would keep my eyes on those guys. So then, if I need to make a move and a team, one of these guys come up in a trade talk, maybe I'll be able to get that kid away from that particular team. Maybe we see something different that his team doesn't see. So when you look at Giddey was a star in the making there. He had one tough season where he didn't shoot the ball,
Yeah,
and I think that attributes to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's ascension to the star of that team. I think that's
yeah,
you take the ball out of Giddey's hands where he's much more effective. You watch him this summer with Australia's national team. When he has the ball in his hands, the team is a totally different team. And I
yeah,
think Shea Gilgeous took the ball out of his hands last year, and it really made it difficult for him to try to find his niche off the ball. He's not comfortable playing off the ball. And I think
mhm,
that's why he struggled. I think he struggled with his shot, with his confidence. And then there was a lot of stuff going on off the court that
yeah.
could have played into his mental psyche. I think leaving Oklahoma City now, coming to Chicago, a fresh start, an opportunity to make his mark here on a team that desperately needs, a young, athletic, young point guard that can take this team to the next level. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Speaking of, you're talking about Lonzo Ball. Let's talk about him real quick as it relates to Josh Giddey. Anyway, you and Adam had a chance to chat with Lonzo, I believe, in one of the games on the broadcast last season. The time he talked about how he was fully anticipating, playing going into this season. Throughout the summer, we've been seeing the workout videos from Lonzo where he's been moving well, getting shots up, looking comfortable on the floor. And now, of course, recently we learned that he's really, tackled the biggest hurdle and seeing a return to 5-on-5 action on the court, which is great, and he's been doing so without any setbacks. So I think a lot of us, I'm sure, were skeptical that Lonzo was going to be able to return to the court. Obviously, still has some work ahead of him to get back out there. But because you've been around the game for a long time, both in your playing days and broadcasting career, you probably have better instincts than most of us on how realistic it is to expect a return from someone like Lonzo. Do you think he's finally turned that corner and is on his way to be suiting up for opening night? And I guess sort of a second question to that, what does that mean for his role on the team, given that really that trade for Josh Giddey, a lot of people are sort of viewing that as the Lonzo Ball replacement, if you will.
I don't look at it as being Lonzo Ball replacement. I think Lonzo Ball is showing everybody that, this surgery that he had, it's never been done before. So no one knows if he could come back at all from that. But knowing Lonzo Ball and how hard he wants to be back here, and knowing the pain that he was in, having those multiple surgeries the last 2 years that he never could find out what it was. Was it
Right.
a nerve damage? Was it cartilage, meniscus? They could never find out what it was. And to see him go through that, those last 2 years and the pain that he's had to go
Mhm.
through, to see him now, the videos and watching him play and watching him shoot and watching him do things and be active again, has been remarkable. I mean, it's been a blessing. And I think personally, he's going to come back and he's going to be better than what he was when he was before he went out. That's saying a
Really?
lot. Yeah,
Okay.
I think he loves to play. He loves to play basketball. He's not a showman like his brother, Lamelo.
Yeah.
They're two different players. And Lonzo is a blue collar, hardworking. I want to make sure my teammates are taken care of. When he's on that floor, he makes the team so much better, much more efficient offensively. Uh, when we lost Zoe, it was like losing three people. You're losing three great players. Um,
Mhm.
and so to have him back in any capacity, and I'm sure the Bulls are going to bring him along slowly. They're not going to just throw him out there and say give him 40 minutes. I think he'll
Yeah, yeah.
probably, I think he'll probably end up coming off the bench in the beginning just to get like 20, 25 minutes a night, if that's the timetable. See how he's feeling going towards the second part of the year, and they can amp it up a little bit more. But I expect him to make a full recovery. I think you also got to remember this: there's not a lot of players like Lonzo Ball out there. Lonzo Ball is one of the best point guards in the game. He was one of the best point guards before he left. So I expect him to come back and do the things that he was doing. Maybe he may not be as athletic, but looking at the video, it looks like he's athletic. I saw him dunking. I saw him moving really well without the basketball. And that's an
Yeah.
encouraging sign if you're Bulls fans. It's an encouraging sign if you're the Bulls front office, is to be able to see one of your key players uh recovering, and a guy you thought would probably never play again, have an opportunity to play again and play again at a high level.
One of the things I've been saying on my channel a lot is that unlike a situation like Derrick Rose, who did rely a lot on his athleticism, after coming back from injury, and that really what, kind of set him back as far as the future of his career. Lonzo, it's a little bit different, right? I mean, obviously, the athleticism, like you said, we're seeing it and we hope that it's still there. But his game, can be so much more impactful outside of
Yes.
just his pure athleticism.
Yes.
Having that court vision, your IQ, you don't lose your
No.
IQ on the court from an
No.
injury. You're always going to have that. And obviously the shooting, right? It's just playing
Yes.
off the ball and getting those shots up that the Bulls need. So I personally think that I would be more optimistic in seeing Lonzo return than someone like Derrick Rose. But we'll never know. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, he still has some road ahead of him to try to get back on
Yeah.
the court. I, I'm curious. Have you seen him play 5-on-5? Because to my
I
knowledge, there hasn't been any
I've s
footage of him doing that. So
I've seen some videos, of him playing 5-on-5, and he's moving up and down the court. It's not a lot of people are not seeing it. So,
right,
it's not
right,
out there yet, but,
right.
what I've seen, he's moving very well, doing everything he was doing before he's out. The key for Zoe is, and this is why I think he'll make a comeback, is that, this is a kid who loves to play basketball, and he's a
Right.
young, I think what is Zoe, like 27, if he's
I think he's
27?
20. Yeah, 27 now. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's still young, and so his body, when you're young like that, you recover a little bit differently when you're 32 or 33 years old.
Right.
This is a kid that, who's had some injuries in his career, but he's always been able to bounce back. I think now they're going to exhaust all options to his family, his agent. They're going to exhaust all options to make sure he's right before he comes back. And I think what we've seen this summer, the court work, he wasn't even able to do that, the last 2 years.
Right.
See him on the basketball court in general, just moving and posting up and dribbling and working on his handles and going to the rim and going off one leg, that's an encouraging sign if you're Bulls fans, because we know how important this guy is to this team. We saw it. It's not some. This is not like some folk tale. Like, oh, well, was he really that good? No, he was very good when he was here, and I expect him to be very good if he comes back. I expect him to be the defensive player that he was. I expect him to be the rebounding at the point guard position. And the one thing about Zoe, and you see a lot of it in Giddey, is that when the ball's in their hands, they don't waste a lot of dribble time. They don't dribble
Yeah.
the air out of the ball to bring the ball to the floor. If they turn, they get the ball, Jamal, they turn, look up the floor. They see somebody ahead, they pitch it ahead. They throw it 70 feet ahead of it and then let someone else make a decision with the basketball at that point. Whether they get the assist or not, they don't care. They're just playing basketball. That's basketball IQ because you can move the ball faster by pass than you can dribbling. And so they understand that as point guards, as they get the ball. If I want to get that ball to the floor in a fast break, if I see Zach Lavine filling lane and he's got a dunk, I'm pitching ahead. Go dunk it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
those two guys have a very unique skill level when it comes to moving the basketball without having to dribble the air out of the ball.
So you mentioned Zach Levine. I did want to talk about him for a little bit and kind of how he fits into all of this, right? Because let's say Lonzo does come back better than expected, like you're saying. You got Josh Giddey, you got Kobe White, Dosunmu, even throw Javon Carter in there if you want, and Zach Levine, right? It's like, so how does the rotation look like? And obviously wanted to talk as far as Zach Levine because he's still on this roster. I mean, a lot can change in a matter of minutes in the NBA, but the team is sort of preparing for the likelihood that Zach is going to be on this team. He's going to become ready to play for training camp. Um, you know, what does that mean for his role? Do you think that the Bulls ultimately will try to find a trade? Well, not try, they have been, will find a trade partner for him. And if they don't, do you think that there's a world where it actually could work with Zach staying on the roster?
I honestly think it could work. I think that they're all going to have to sit down and they're going to have a conversation of what's best for the team, what's best for the organization, what's best for Zach. I think Zach's realized that a lot of people don't value him as high as maybe he thinks that he's valued. I think that
Sure.
was a rude awakening this summer. To me, he's one of the better two guards in this league. I love Zach Levine. Okay, I think a lot of it had to do with his injuries, that a lot of people want to see if he's healthy.
Yeah.
You haven't really seen a lot of video of Zach out there. And I think if Zach's, people would have put him out there more on video, I just started seeing some just come up over the last, 10 days.
Same.
But
Yeah.
maybe if they had done that earlier, in the summer and let people see that he's healthy, that he's running, he's jumping, maybe there would have been more interest in him because teams now would have said, okay, yeah, he's healthy. We see it. But that video just came out just recently. So when they were playing at UCLA with with all the kid from Miami, um,
Right.
uh, the rookie from last year,
Hawkes.
yeah, Hawkes. They were
Yeah.
playing a video of that, and he looked good. Zach to me, I, I feel like listen, there's so many things that have to play out for next season. Okay,
Yeah.
one, this is not the year we want to win games. I mean, next year's draft, the 2025
Right.
draft is loaded with supposedly, organizational game changers. These are
Yeah.
these are generational talent. There's like 10 or 12 of those guys in that draft that you can say besides Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag is the number one guy. Everyone knows that is a foundational piece right there.
Right.
But there's about 10 other kids out there that can change your fortune of your franchise. And
Yep.
we need to be in that draft. We need to be, we have a top 10 pick. If we fall out of top 10, San Antonio gets it. And this is
Mhm.
not a draft you want to have because as you can see, someone could be labeled, number one pick or number two pick, number three pick, and then they end up sliding to number 11. You end up
Yep.
as we got Bucelis. Bucelis was to me is the number one player in that draft in this year's draft. I thought was the best player in the draft. He goes from number one, possibly number one, top five pick, slides all
Yeah.
the way down to 11, which that was unheard of. No one in there, no expert saw that coming. So that can
Yeah.
happen next year. We lose that pick. San Antonio ends up getting someone that they probably thought they weren't going to get. It wasn't, that was rated higher on the board. So you got to be very careful with that. And I think, if you got Zach playing here next year, which he is this season, you got Vooch, you got Lonzo Ball being back, you got Giddey, you got Coby White, who I think is going to take another step. Patrick Williams, they re-signed him, so his confidence is going to be super high now that, and hopefully he'll be able to come out. This team could be a lot better than what people think, which is
And do you think
scary,
that yeah.
Jamal, because
Right.
this is not the time we want to win right now. But the Bulls are not, AK is not about tanking. He
Right.
said that, and the
Yeah.
way they put this team together, think about this for a second. They've gone out, there's 8 players under this team under 25 years old on this team. Okay. And
Right.
those 8 players all have major NBA experience. They've got at least 4 years of NBA experience. They've had some moderate success at the NBA level, okay?
Mhm.
So you look at Giddey. Giddey's had success at the NBA level as a starting point guard. Coby has had success here as a starting, guard, as a point guard last year, and should have been most improved player last year. And they ended up giving to Maxi, which was highway
Right.
robbery. Okay. And you
Yeah.
go and then you look at the kid Smith from Indiana that we picked up. He's had some success at the NBA level playing for the Pacers and the Suns. So there's a lot of young talent that we have here that we've acquired over the last this summer and some the last year that have over 800 games started
Yeah.
as a collective group. He's got over 800 games started. That is pretty crazy if you think about it in a rebuild situation. You're getting like 7 to 8 guys under 25 years old with 800 starts. Whew, whew. And the
So
East is and the
so I
East is
mean
not going to be that good. There's going to be some
no,
teams that
exactly.
I mean, there's going to be 8. There's going to probably be 8 teams that are going to be looking to get in that draft next year. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Bulls beat some of these teams and put themselves in position. We don't want to be in the play-in. You don't want to be in that situation. It's either got, I mean, you got to be in the playoffs, a top 5, 6 seed. The playing games, forget all that, man. We've been in the playing game the last 2 years, and that's not fun.
So what do you think the Bulls should do then? Do you think that the prioritization should be trying to keep that pick, or should it be developing the young players, developing the young core? Which I guess you can do both, right? You can do both at the same time. But like you said, I'm in agreement with you. This team, as currently constructed, has too much talent to, you know,
To
take a
roll over.
chance on getting that top 10
Yeah,
pick.
it's
Yeah,
it's too much talent. I mean, just Zach and Giddey and Vooch alone. You got
right.
you got two of those guys are all stars. Former all stars. So those
Yeah.
two guys in itself is going to guarantee you more wins than you probably would have thought if you would have just had all a bunch of five young guys out there playing. And plus, when you get young players who've had moderate success in this league and they didn't work out somewhere else, they get an opportunity, a clean slate somewhere
Sure.
else. They're going to come out here and play hard. They're not going to roll over. They're going to come out here. They're going to do it. They're going to play hard. They're going to compete every night. Each one of these kids the Bulls have brought into this organization are guys who are team players. They're fundamentally sound. They have high basketball IQ. They're going to come out here and
Hmm.
they're going to look to win. And it's in no team, no organization can go tell a team like, all right, we want to tank. That doesn't work in the NBA. Either you're
Right.
good or you're bad. Or you're in between. Okay. The
Hmm.
Bulls have been in between the last couple of years. They've been one foot in over on the good side. We're a good team. And then the other side over here, oh, well, we're not so good. And so they've been in the middle. They've been in like that purgatory part. They've been in the two playing games, but the talent
Right.
said they were better than playing games. The talent said
Right.
they were better than playing games. So now you're in a situation now you lose Caruso, you lose DeMar DeRozan, you completely revamped your team and you got Zach coming back in the fold now. Now Zach has something to prove. The key now with Zach is Zach going to come in? He's never been a bad teammate. That's one thing about Zach. Zach's a good teammate and he's a good soldier. I don't see any problems him coming back and being upset that they didn't deal him. I think you sit down, Zach, and you tell him, like, hey, listen, here's what we're doing here. You can be part of it or you don't have to be part of it. But we'd like you to be part of it. We think you with your skill set, you can help us get to where we need to go. Okay. If he's not down for that, then you gotta sit him because then what happens is you're taking Kobe's opportunity now to grow. Coby
Sure.
now has to take a back seat another year.
Right.
Io, all these guys, Dalen Terry, all these guys who need playing time to develop and an opportunity to grow. Now you set them back another year. Patrick Williams, we've been waiting for him to explode and have an opportunity to have a breakout year. And he's given us glimpses over these 3 or 4 years, but he's never been able to sustain it and be consistent. And now with DeMar being gone, there's more minutes for him to get in there and do the things that I think that AK and them believe that he could do when they drafted him out of Florida State.
I was gonna ask you, you're talking about, Zach Levine coming back and, that relationship, you know, it's possible that it could be repairable. We obviously heard recently, I think it was ESPN Jamal Collier that came out with the report. There was a quote from someone, within the organization. It didn't have the nicest things to say about Zach, about how, He's never won anything. He's always done things his own way. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but um, just you being within the organization, have you heard similar sentiment about Zach
No,
Levine
no,
around the team? Or,
no. And one of those
so
things
were you
I
surprised by that quote?
yeah, I was surprised by that. And I'm not a big fan of anonymous quotes. I mean, if you're gonna put
Yeah,
somebody's name out there and put that kind of dirt out there on a kid, then put your name behind it. Okay, stand by
sure.
what you say. If it ain't coming from AK or Mark Eversley or Michael Reinsdorf or someone like that, I don't listen to that. Okay. Now, you can sit up there and say, well, Zach Levine's not a winner. He hasn't won anywhere. Okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's basically true, but it's not all falls on Zach Levine. There's other people on that team. He's on
yeah,
Minnesota team. Wiggins didn't win either. Neither did Towns. Those guys, they were young kids coming in, not knowing how to play together, not knowing how to win, trying to figure out who's number one, who's number two, who's number three. You bring in three
yeah,
talented kids. They're all fighting to be the number one guy. Of course, you're not going to win. Okay. So basketball's a team game. If he's playing tennis, then you can say he's not a winner. If he's a boxer, you say he's not a winner. But basketball's a team game. You can't label someone not a winner because the team doesn't have success. Maybe he doesn't do the things that fans say, well, this helps teams win. Like I would like to see Zach be a much better defensive player. I think the coaching staff, I think everybody involved would like to see him be a better two-way player. He right now
yeah,
he's labeled a one-way player. He can go out and get you 25 or more every single night. But on the flip side, when you need him on the defensive end, he's shown he can play defense. He played on the Olympic team. That's how he got on the floor, was playing defense. And he started that when he
right,
first came back from the Olympic team when we were in the bubble and he was playing defense. So he has the ability and the athleticism to play defense, but I think he spends more time playing on the offensive end, saving it for the offensive end than being a two-way player. And all the great two guards in this league, Michael, Coby, Mitch Richmond, Clyde Drexler, all those guys were to Joe Dumars. All these guys were great two-way players. They could all score, but they could also shut you down on the other end. And I think if Zach could really, tighten up the defense a little bit and be more of a because there's no way he couldn't average 2 steals a game with his athleticism. There's no way in the world you
sure,
couldn't see him out on a break getting a steal and doing a 360 dunk. Some of the things that he likes to do in the open court. That's what I'd
right.
like to see more of. And I'm sure Billy Donovan, the coaching staff, would like to see him do more of that as well. And then having a guy like Lonzo back, having some guys out there who are defensive minded. I mean, Kobe's a pretty good defensive player, made himself a good defensive player. Io's a good defensive
Yeah,
player. Dalen Terry gets out there and competes. Patrick Williams the same well. So when you start seeing these guys, maybe next year, this season, Zach will see these guys and want to turn it up himself defensively.
I think one of the things I appreciated from Kobe last season was just his effort on the defensive end, right? Like you're not going to call Kobe White, a great defensive player, elite defensive player, but he at least hustles and tries on that end of the
He's
floor,
adequate.
right? You
I
want to
I
see
would
it.
say he's
Yeah,
above average.
yeah,
Just his overall game has taken big jumps. I mean, when he first came in, his handles were not very good. He was super
yeah,
fast, 94 feet. He was awesome, but trying to break down a guy off a pick and roll, trying to keep your dribble alive, being able to find the guys in comfortable places to shoot. Kobe struggled at that. He'd lose his dribble sometimes, get silly turnovers. He worked on his
right.
ball handling. He came back and he was a better ball handler 2 seasons ago. You got to remember when Zoe and them were healthy, people and Kobe was out with a labrum tear, and he came back
Yep,
I think he came back like in December. They brought him along really slowly. People were yelling, "Trade him! Trade him! Trade him! Trade him!" And people forgot what he did his rookie year. He shot the ball extremely well. He had games, some
right.
big games as a rookie, and and
Yeah.
and oh, how people forget how a player plays because now you're just watching what you see now and you kind of forget, what have you done for me lately? So when he struggled with that labrum tear, people were talking about trading him. He's not a good player. He's a bust, blah, blah, blah. He comes back, works on his ball handling, comes back, works on his defense, and he finds himself in a rotation. Should have been most improved player last year. And hopefully this year he takes another step into becoming what we feel he could be an all-star caliber player.
So, Stacy, is it okay if we switch gears and ask a few questions about your playing days?
Let's do it.
So, some of my viewers probably aren't going to really care, but I'm going to selfishly ask the questions I've always been curious about as a kid growing up in the '90s. What was your first interaction like with Michael Jordan when you first joined the team, 1989?
Well, my
The first time you met him?
first interaction with MJ was he brought in like the top 10 players and we went to Wilmington, North Carolina to open up a Jump 23 store. So that was the very
Mm,
first time I met him and we as growing up, we all idolized Michael. I had a poster on
Right.
my wall with MJ on it, and every time before a game, I'd rub the poster and I'd go out and score like 40. So I always attributed that, Michael's powers would always kind of like it always like just get inside me and I'd go out and have like a Michael Jordan type game at the college level. And
Right.
but meeting him for the first time was real cool, laid back, chill. Um, you kind of starstruck when you meet him because at that particular time he exploded. Like, I mean, I
Sure.
was a big fan of North Carolina when he was at North Carolina, but when he came in as NBA rookie, just took the league by storm. Then, he was the
Mhm.
first person that really had his own, his signature shoe. And, so we as kids, we just idolized him. So it was really cool meeting him.
Were you, you said you're a bit starstruck. Was it one of those things where you felt like you wanted to make sure you didn't say the wrong thing or anything like that? You're just like, "All right, we're teammates now, and this is, gonna be one of my
Yeah,
buddies."
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty chill like that. I'm not like one of those guys that really, really get super starstruck at people because, I
Yeah.
believe, you treat people the way you want to be treated, and they're just people. They're just humans. If he had 8 arms
Yeah.
and 8 legs, then maybe we were talking about something a little bit different. But, when you're down to earth type of guy and you're real cool, I really gravitate to those kind of people. I do, there's a story like, we were talking about the poster thing. I remember my first preseason game. We're getting ready to play the Pistons and we were at the old stadium. And um, I didn't bring my poster with me because I remember when I was moving from Oklahoma to Chicago, it was such I signed, I was the last rookie to sign that
Mm,
year. And so I
okay.
immediately had to leave a lot of stuff at home and then just come straight to Chicago, sign my contract and to make training camp. Because the big thing with me was I didn't want to miss any training camp. I didn't want to miss a day of training camp. I would be there from day one. So I told my agent, David Falk, which also was Michael Jordan's agent, do whatever
Mm,
you got to do, man. Get me into camp. I do not want to be. I don't even want to be an hour late. So it was like it was like a really really difficult contract negotiations, and we were able to get it done. I had to fly in the day of camp, so we did media day, and I did that, and so I didn't miss any days. So, but we my first preseason game was against Detroit. And so I didn't have my poster, so I'm very superstitious about stuff like that. And
yeah.
so I was like, well, damn. Oh, well, you know what? I don't really need a poster because I got the dude's right here. I could actually go
Yeah,
touch him, and then I'll
sure.
get my little luck like my lucky rabbit's foot. So Michael's getting dressed. He's talking to the media. He's got no shirt on, so he's got like his shorts on or whatever. And so I'm getting ready to walk out the door, and I'm questioning myself. Like, should I touch this dude? Man, maybe he thinks it's wrong. Maybe it's not a good appropriate thing to do. I said, "What the hell, man? I need my luck." So I went over there. I like rubbed his back. And he says, "Hey, man, what you doing? Hey, what are you doing over there?" I was like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry, man. I used to have a poster of you, and I used to rub it before every game. So now I left my poster back at school. So I figured I could just rub you now that oh no, man, no, you better go get that poster. Go
And
get that
and
poster."
how'd the game how'd the game go then after that?
I ended up getting ejected. I got ejected the first
In a
quarter
preseason
in a
game?
preseason game against the Pistons.
Oh, wow.
I was going for an offensive rebound, and Scott Hastings, who just came over, I think, from the Denver Nuggets. And it's really funny because, like,
Wow.
you might not be a tough guy on another team, and then you get put on a team that has that tough guy mentality, like the Detroit Pistons did
Yeah,
during
yeah.
that. And then you start to acquire some of that toughness, and you're really not that kind of guy. You're not built that way. And Scott Hastings
Right.
wasn't built that way, but he wanted to show his teammates, like, hey, I'm with you guys. So he pulled that crap on me. So I was going for an offensive rebound, and I was beating him to the spot, and he clotheslined me and pulled me to the
Oof.
floor, which in turn I immediately gave up, got up and threw a two-piece at a pop without the Fanta and the biscuit. And then I got
No
ejected.
way.
Yeah, I got ejected my first preseason game. And then I go to the locker room and you know, the players loved it because I didn't really know the Pistons rivalry was as intense as it was. Then that
Right.
night, I didn't know. I saw it, and when you're on the outside looking in as a college player, you don't really know the inner
Sure.
workings of those things. And it was personal. It was real personal, and I did not know it was. I mean, listen, we hated Kansas, but it wasn't personal to the point where it was vicious like that. It's like just two teams
Right,
don't like
right.
each other, but no one did any dirty things. No one did anything to hurt someone. But that rivalry with Detroit was personal. And when you get put in the middle of that, you learn, now like, okay, this is not just a regular team we're playing. Like this is blood.
Was there like a least favorite player you had to go up against during your playing days? Not even if it was just, someone in Detroit, but anybody around the league that you just really kind of despised on the court?
I didn't really, the only person I don't really like despise people. Like I think the only person I kind of never really liked was Carl Malone. Like I didn't really like Carl
Okay.
Malone. He's about the only person in the NBA that, and I would probably say Rodman when Rodman was playing with the
In Detroit,
Spurs
yeah.
when he was not so much
Oh, the Spurs.
Detroit,
Okay.
but with the Spurs. I didn't
Okay.
like him then because I always thought they did dirty stuff where the referees didn't see it, like punching the
Right.
ribs and do stupid stuff. But as
Sure.
far as as far as my players, like I hated the guard because they were so good.
Yeah.
Their footwork was impeccable. Olajuwon was tough to guard. Like
Right.
I could guard anybody on the floor, but that guy was super tough because of his footwork and his movement. Like I mean,
Yeah.
he was the Michael Jordan of big men. I would say he's the Michael Jordan of big guys. And then
Right.
Kevin McHale. Kevin McHale had some of the best post
Mm.
moves. Those two guys had some of the best post moves in the history of the NBA. I mean, Kevin McHale, not only was he wasn't fast, but every one of his fundamental, he was as fundamentally sound as anybody that's ever played the game. The way he uses up and under fakes, and he was so long, he could give you an up and under outside the paint, and in one step, he would be right at the rim. I mean, that's how long he was. And he was just tough to guard because he could face up and hit, 15-foot jumper. He could, back you down, step through, up and under. You knew every single time what was coming. Like you knew
Right.
that move was coming, but he still
Right.
gets you every single time. It'd
Still
be an
got
and
it.
one.
Right. Who was the unsung hero, if you will, from those first three championships, the team that you were a part of? Everyone always talks about Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, but in your view, and from what you remember anyway, who was one of those players that didn't get enough credit for what they brought to the court and their impact in winning those first three championships?
I would say Bill Cartwright.
Okay.
Bill Cartwright at that time was asked to do so much. I mean, he was the anchor of our defense. He had to guard during that time. You had to go against some of the best big men in the NBA history. Every team had 7 footers. Every team, you look at the battles with Cleveland. You had Brad Daugherty. You look
Right.
at Patrick Ewing, the battles that he had to battle with Patrick Ewing in New York, the Alonzo Mornings, and
Mm.
I mean, all these big guys that he had to go against to neutralize those guys to get Shaq to give us a chance to win. And I don't think he gets enough credit. You know, this is a guy who was a 18, 19 point a game scorer in New York. Former All Star in
Right.
New York. He had to come here and he had to take a lesser role, but his
Sure.
role was no less important than what Michael and Scotty did. Bill was. I mean, not only was he like I consider him the backbone of the team. Of
Sure.
that team. It's just a hard worker, mentor to all those young kids. Myself, Scott Williams, Will Purdue. We learned so much from him during those first three championships, and Phil really relied on him more so than he did MJ. And MJ's MJ. MJ's gonna get his. MJ's gonna do what he does.
Right.
But a guy like Bill, has to go out there and neutralize Patrick Ewing for us to have a chance to win. Patrick Ewing at that time was in his prime. He was one of the best centers in
Sure.
the league, and Bill neutralized him. And the Brad Daughertys and the Pistons and being able to offset the physicality to bring us to physicality to be able to battle against the Pistons. Here you got a guy who's a all-star caliber player, big strong guy, doesn't take nothing from anybody. It was a very unpopular trade when they brought him here. Because his first
Yeah.
year was my first year. So, they trade Oakley to New York, and then and I think it was a trade that really helped both teams. But that was Michael's, Oakley was Michael's bodyguard, basically. He's that guy. If it was a hockey game, he'd be that, Bob Probert, he'd be the guy that you send out there that'll fight everybody. Bill
Right. Right.
Bill is a guy that, is not like that, but he's a guy that will fight you. He's a guy that won't take any mess from you. And he won't back down. And to me, I think he's one of the unsung heroes of those championship runs.
And for those watching, Stacey also does an excellent impersonation
Ha!
of
Man, I
Bill
lost my
Cartwright.
voice doing that. He cursed me. He told me if I kept doing it, I wouldn't be sounding like that for real.
I died laughing when you did that on the broadcast in one of the games this past season. Absolutely hilarious. Um, Stacey, I'll get you out of here on this one because I know you got to run to do a show for the Give Me the Hot Sauce podcast. Best memory or moment from your tenure playing with the Bulls?
Hmm. Well, it's easy for me because anytime you're playing for championships, is like I would go back to that, second championship against Portland, and we're down, 15 points going into the fourth quarter, getting ready to go to a
Mhm.
game seven. That would have been our first game seven, Michael's
Right.
first game seven. And Portland was beating up on us pretty good. It was a very good series. It was two great teams. And nothing, you never know what's going to happen in a game seven, even though you got a game seven at home. Jamal,
Right.
you just don't never know, especially if a team wins game six and they win the way that they were winning and they're blowing us out. They're going into a game seven feeling really confident that they can do it again. So
Yeah.
Michael wasn't playing very well. Our first unit wasn't playing very well. We get down 16 points. We're going into the fourth quarter. Phil gets all the young players, and Scotty. He always kept Scotty out there with us, because he always felt that having Scotty on the floor with the young players calmed us down, which it did, you know. And
Right.
so he says to us, hey, you know what? Go out there and play hard. He didn't say go out there and win. Let's win this tonight. Because I don't think Phil, honestly, if you ask him to this day, I don't think he thought we were going to win that game. He just put us out there because he knew that we would go out there and play hard, at least make a game out
Sure.
of it, and not get blown
Sure.
out by 30. And I
Right.
and I think he felt like Michael and those guys were tired because it was a really grueling series against Portland, and it was a series where you go two, it's like 2-3-2 type things back in the old days.
Yeah,
When,
the
you know, so
2-3-2,
yeah,
like
so
getting back
it
to it,
was
yeah.
we had to travel out west, and so we were out in Portland, and guys might have been tired, or whatever, but they didn't play particularly well in that game six. And then so we went out there, myself, BJ, Scott Williams, Bobby Hansen, and Scotty.
Mhm.
And Cliff Levinson came in at some parts of that too. But our second group took a lot of pride in that. And then we came back there and we cut the lead down. We got it to three with
Mhm.
about 3 minutes to go in the game. And so Michael, and the good thing about our team was, guys weren't, the starters weren't over there pouting that they were sitting down. They got up, they were cheering us on. The crowd was going crazy because that was the first championship won in the city of Chicago in the NBA.
Right, right,
So that was
right,
history there. So there was so much stuff going on. I had like 7 points, crucial 7 points in a stretch where it was just me. Like I felt like I was at Oklahoma again. They turned me loose
right,
and they let me do what I do. And
right.
I've had some scoring. I had scoring games in my career in Chicago, but having it done in that situation under those circumstances to me makes it much bigger than anything that I've done, even at the college level. Because I knew how impactful that was during that particular series and that particular game. Because again, if we don't go out there and play well, we go to game seven and no telling what I know we win. Michael's not gonna let us lose a game seven.
He's not gonna
No,
lose that
no,
game
but
7,
you
yeah.
just never know. You don't want to get to that
Sure.
point. And BJ hit a couple of baskets. Bobby Hansen hit a couple of baskets. So our bench guys, we came in and really saved that game. And then with 3 minutes to go, we're all hyped up. The crowd's all hyped up. It's so loud in the old stadium. You couldn't even hear Phil talking to you, and he was in your face. It was so loud. And then
Right.
but we did hear this. Michael, close it out. We heard that. We didn't hear nothing
I
else,
love it.
Jamal, but we heard
I love it. I love
Michael,
it.
close it out. And then, as you say, Black Jesus comes out and it's all, and we're not upset. Guys might have been upset during that time. It's like, yo, we got us
Yeah,
here. Let us finish it. But none of us were like that because we know how important it is to win championships.
yeah.
You got a chance to win a championship. We don't care how we do it as long as we do it. And so he went back out there and the Superman was in the building. We ended up winning and we celebrated it on the court in front of our fans, and it was a blast.
It's interesting that you say that that was, one of the memories you're talking about that because that final series is my very first memory of ever watching basketball.
Oh wow.
I mean, I was a little kid. I think I was 6 years old at the time, and that's how I got into basketball. Was that final series? And I, remember John Paxson throwing the ball up in the air and the crowd rushing the court. And I remember thinking it was odd because at that time, I didn't comprehend. Oh, this is a championship game, right? I'm just
Yeah.
watching basketball, and it's
Yeah.
fun. It's a lot of back and forth. I was like, "Oh," and my dad had told me, he's like, "No, they just won the championship," and
Yeah.
I fell
Yeah.
in love with the game ever since then. But I do remember that I was annoyed that they benched Michael. I was like, "Why isn't Michael Jordan out there? He was
Yep.
dominating all these other games. Why is he sitting?" But it's funny because sometimes you need that, right? You need that
Yeah.
second unit to come in and just act as a spark if things aren't going well, and that's exactly
Well,
what
and
happened there. So
that's why having a good bench is so important. Most championship
right,
teams have really good benches. And so when your starters don't have it, your coach has confidence putting guys out there in key roles and saying, go get
right,
it. And so we did that all year long. That's one of the reasons why we had success because most of those guys off the bench would have started on a lot of teams in the NBA. Myself, BJ, I got traded to Minnesota. I ended up starting for Minnesota, and that's all I want to do in
right,
my career is start. BJ
right.
started, Scott Williams started games. So we're coming off the bench, so you got starters coming off the bench. These are not just regular role players. These are guys that can actually start in the NBA that've had success in the NBA. I was on the second team all rookie team. So we've had some success as players, but sometimes you get
Yeah,
overshadowed because you have such great players like Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, the Paxsons of the world, Bill Cartwright. These guys sometimes, they overshadow Horace Grant. And don't forget how important Horace Grant was. We
of
had
course,
we I mean,
incredible.
everybody played an important role, but the one thing about those teams is that we were super close. We pushed each other to be the best that we could because in practice, our practices were more intense than the games. We were going at each
Sure.
other because it was so competitive, Jamal. Like Horace is playing in front of me. I gotta let Horace know that if you slip up, I'm coming. Like I'm
Yeah,
just not gonna
of
roll over
course.
here and practice and let you be Horace Grant. I want
Right,
your spot. So I
right,
gotta push him as hard as I can to keep him on his toes. And he's got to push me as hard as he can to keep me at bay to not get his spot. So it only makes two
right,
players better when you're going at each other like that. The Scottie Pippins of the world going up against, Michael every day in practice. Yeah, they were on a team in the games, but in practice, those guys battle against each other. And it made both those guys better. So BJ going up against John Paxson, Will Purdue and Scott Williams going up against Bill Cartwright every single day. It only makes you better. That's why I always tell, these young players, man, if you're not pushing yourself against the guy who's in front of you and you just accept being on the bench, then you might as well just stay there the rest of your career because you're going to be content. Just hey, I'm just happy to be here. No, you got to let the guy
right.
in front of you know, like, hey, there is no days off. I'm gonna push you every
Yeah.
single day in drills, in the scrimmages, whatever it is. I'm coming at you. I'm gonna come at your neck hard.
I know I said that was the last question, but you were just talking about the team and how close you guys were. Just quickly, I'm curious, what was the feeling around the locker room, around the team when you guys learned that Michael was retiring in that summer of '93?
Well, we kind of all knew because Michael. First of all, three straight championships.
Right,
How long that season lasted. And then he went on the dream team, and that was part of all that. And then the death of his father. That
right.
was huge because his father was so instrumental to him. It was so they were so close, and
Yeah,
to have his dad violently taken away in a senseless crime it would have triggered so many different feelings for anybody.
right.
This is your confidant, and then you had the gambling accusations going on during that
Sure,
time,
sure.
and if it wasn't for Mr. Jordan and shielding Michael from all that, and giving him a safe haven, taking bullets for him, Michael probably would have probably been way worse off. But Mr. Jordan was able to shield some of that stuff from him, and was there for MJ. And then, when he got, I remember the day that he came up missing. We had the softball game over at the White Sox park with Michael Bolton. He has his traveling softball team, and
Mm,
Michael they had put on a celebrity softball game over at the Comiskey Park. And now, Mr. Jordan, who's never missed anything, he doesn't miss
mhm,
anything, wasn't there, which was very uncommon. So you knew something
mhm.
was wrong, and then you say, "Hey, where's your dad?" Oh, he's visiting some family at such and such, and like, well, okay, all right, well, but he's at every event, and he wasn't
Right.
at this event, and this had to do, this was a charity event he never misses. And I remember
Sure.
after that game, I went on a trip to Hawaii with my family, and I remember, it was world news. It was like, it was on world news, NBC. Mr.
Okay.
Jordan, was murdered. They found his car. He's been missing for so many days. And
Right.
my stomach just dropped because he was like a father to all of us.
Sure.
He was around the team all the time. He'd make you laugh. I mean, he was just an awesome, awesome man. And to lose your father that way, a violent crime. It's not he died of an
Yeah.
illness. He was violently taken away from his family. That's hard to
Right.
overcome. especially now you got all these people making assumptions. Or was it the gambling debts? Was it this or that? Did the mob kill him? It's like, come on, man, let this man grieve,
Yeah.
so then the season comes back right around like 2 months later. Michael never
Right.
really had time to grieve. And so,
Sure.
we kind of knew that he was going to step away. And we knew he'd come back. We just didn't know when, and so, but we had to prepare like he wasn't coming back. And then
Right.
Horace signs with Orlando, Scott Williams signs with Philadelphia, and guys start to leave the team and, for more
Right.
money, because when you win championships, there's more opportunity for you
Sure.
outside because everybody wants to try to, poach you away from a championship team to make you
Yeah.
weaker. And I don't think they gave Scotty his credit that he was a great player. And Scotty carried
Yeah.
that team that year. The Bulls won 50 games that season. And he was up there for MVP, should have been MVP of the
Mhm.
of the league. And he carried that team without MJ. And that shows
Right.
you how great people forget that. People don't remember that. And Scotty
Yeah.
carried that team. And if it was one bad foul call away in New York, the Bulls might have went back to the finals. And I don't know if they would
Right.
have won, but they would have went back to the finals. They would have had to play Houston, and
Yeah.
not having MJ against Olajuwon, that would have been tough. But
Yeah.
that Hubert Davis phantom foul call that Hugh Hollins made, and that changed the whole complexion of that series. And if
Right.
that foul doesn't happen, or that phantom foul doesn't happen, the Bulls might advance. As they still would have advanced to had to play, I think, Indiana in the Eastern
Yeah.
Conference
Yeah. It
Finals.
was Indiana.
But
Yeah.
I think they would have beat Indiana and went back, and to get that close, I think Scotty would have pushed them over the top, and they would have went to the finals against Houston. I don't know if they'd had enough. Not having Michael Jordan going up against the Dream had been
Yeah.
tough. But I have these arguments all the time with the Houston guys, Kenny Smith and Ori and all these guys. They talk about
Right.
the two championships they won. Yeah, yeah, the two championships we won was because Michael Jordan was chasing
Michael
curveballs.
retired.
Okay, so if Michael Jordan
Right.
is not chasing curveballs, like first of all, a mark of a really good dominant team is when you would put three together, you win three-peat. Think of the last time you
Right.
saw a team win three. It was the Lakers, I
Yeah.
think. The Lakers way back, but
Yeah.
it's,
The
I
first
mean,
2 years.
yeah. So it's hard to win three. I don't even think now in today's game, Jamal, you'll see a team win back-to-back games. I
Yeah.
mean, back-to-back championships. We thought Denver was going to do it. Okay, but
Right.
Denver, ran up against a matchup problem. I think Denver will be a team like San Antonio. They'll win a championship every couple of years, like odd years or whatever. I don't know if Boston has got enough to repeat next year. There'll be
Yeah.
teams that'll be better. I just don't. I think the time now. I think we've seen the last of the two peats and the three peats.
Well, especially even like three-peat, like you're saying, even the Warriors, as dominant as they were, they never three-peated. You
No,
know what I mean?
no,
Like the
nope.
last time was the
Yeah,
Lakers in the
that's
in the early
and that's
2000s.
what I'm
So
saying. So I mean,
yeah.
especially with free agency and guys leaving,
Right. Right.
it's hard to maintain that. I mean, look at Denver. Look how many key guys they lost off their roster after they won their championship. Bruce Brown,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
you got they just lost
KCP
KCP
left
now.
us. Yeah.
I mean, so they're losing a lot of guys and not replacing them with the players that you need to replace those guys with. And so,
Yeah.
it's hard to see. It's hard to see. And Joker, I'm telling you, Joker is arguably the best player in the league right now. Okay. And so
Yeah.
how many years does he have left playing at the level that he has? If you're Denver, you got to take that into consideration. Like, hey, we might not have this guy much longer. So we need to put a championship team around this dude while we have him in his prime. Because
Right.
when he slows down and he's not as effective as he is now in his prime, you waste his good years. You don't want to waste his good years. So if you're Denver, you're thinking about now, like, how do we put the championship pieces? We got to go for broke because you saw what the dude did in the Olympics. If he had a couple more, I mean, they should have beat the USA. Let's be real. They should have beat the USA.
Yeah.
They had him on the ropes.
They
They had him
were
on the
right
ropes.
there.
They're right there. They had him
Yeah.
on the ropes until
True.
Bogdanovich did the three thing with his head, the Carmelo Anthony. That
Yeah,
changed the
Carmelo
whole
Anthony, yeah.
complexion of the game. If he didn't do
Right.
that, they
Right.
might win that game. But it's interesting that, like, with Joker, you look at Murray, how he played on Canada. Murray looked like a totally different player. I think he only made 3-point shots the whole tournament.
He was bad.
He was
horrible
bad.
in the game.
That tells you
Yeah.
how important that Joker is to his game. Joker
Right.
makes
Right.
everybody around him better. So if you're Denver, you're saying to yourself, like, hey man, we gotta put the championship pieces around this guy before we lose this guy. And he's not at the
Yeah.
level he is now. So they got some work to do out there. It's gonna be wide open again next year.
It's gonna be fun. I was
Because
gonna say
Wimby's
that. And the
coming,
Bulls will
baby.
be
Wimby's coming.
the bull. The
San Antonio's coming, baby. Hey,
I
Wimby.
know. I know.
I
It's
saw Wimby this summer. Wimby looked like a totally different player this summer.
incredible
Yeah,
to
he looked
see.
at
Looks like he's a
totally. He almost
monster.
took France. Hey, they was giving the USA problems too. But I tell
They
you what, the
were,
next
they were.
Olympics, when LeBron them not playing next year, the next time around, I think it's in Los
Yeah,
Angeles in 4 years, right?
yeah, 28, yeah,
Wimby gonna be 4 years more experience, and them young boys from France is gonna be woo wee.
yeah.
Don't sleep on France. Parlez-vous français? Oui, oui.
It'll be fun to watch, that's for sure. Stacey, I love you, man. As always, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. Have
Anytime,
a
brother.
great evening with
Anytime.
me.
You
Have a day,
you're
Bulls
one of the few
fans.
people I look at,
Uh,
I listen to, babe. You got good content, man.
appreciate
I
it.
tell you that all the time. You got great content, man.
Appreciate that, Stacey. Keep up the great work on the broadcast. Tell Adam I said hello, and best of luck to everything this upcoming season.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
You take care.
All right, Jamal. Thanks, man.